The smell of my husband's aftershave used to be a comforting signal of normalcy, a blend of sandalwood and citrus that meant his long day at the brokerage firm was over. Tonight, as I watched Liam, my husband of 15 years, shave before our anniversary dinner, the scent felt alien. He was humming a tune I didn't recognize, a low, cheerful melody that had been on his lips all week. His hands, usually so steady, moved with an almost frantic energy, a nervous excitement that prickled the hairs on my neck. "You look tense," I said, leaning against the doorframe of our master bathroom. A space I had designed with a kind of clinical perfection I now found suffocating. White marble, polished chrome, and a huge mirror that reflected our lives back in flawless detail. Liam's eyes met mine in the reflection, and for a fleeting second, I saw a flicker of something I couldn't place. Guilt, maybe, or a desperate hope. "Just a long week," he said, turning back to the mirror to smooth his tie. "You know how the end of the quarter is." I knew. Or I thought I did. Liam was a workhorse, a man whose ambition had built our comfortable life in this upscale suburb of Milwaukee. He'd put both our daughters through college, bought me the art studio I'd always dreamed of, and never once flinched at my expensive taste in gardening. His long hours were the price of our security. But lately, the price felt steeper. He was more distant, his phone was always face down on the table, and his laughter felt rehearsed, like a new actor trying on an old role. The strange humming continued, a cheerful little lie. Our anniversary dinner was at the Gilded Spoon, the same restaurant where we had our first date. The air was thick with the scent of roasted garlic and expensive perfume. Liam was charming, holding my hand across the white tablecloth, reminiscing about our early years when our dreams were big and our bank account was small. He talked about our daughters, our home, about a future of travel and grandchildren. It all sounded perfect, like the life we'd built. But there was a hollowness to his words, a practiced ease that made my stomach clench. After dinner, we went for a walk through the city park. The evening air was cool, smelling of damp earth and the distant smoke of a bonfire. Liam put his arm around my shoulders, but his gaze kept wandering to his phone, which he held in his other hand like a secret. When we got home, my phone buzzed with an incoming message from my mother, Eleanor. "Happy anniversary, sweetie. Call me tomorrow, okay? I have big news." My mother, Eleanor, was my anchor. She was a single mom who had raised me with grit and grace, her tough love, a constant presence in my life. She was always there for me, celebrating my wins and consoling me through my losses. But recently, she too had become distant. Her weekly calls had become shorter, and a new, almost girlish lightness had crept into her voice. She had even started talking about making some changes, a phrase that, coming from my fiercely independent mother, both confused and intrigued me. The next morning, I poured my coffee and sat down in the living room, ready to call my mother. I glanced at the side table to grab my phone, but a black notebook, one of Liam's, was lying there instead. Liam was not the type to keep a diary. He kept everything on his iPad, his work schedule, his lists, his reminders. This notebook was old, with a leather-bound cover and a faint scent of the sandalwood aftershave. I knew I shouldn't have opened it, but a prickle of unease had been growing inside me for weeks, and my need for clarity was stronger than my sense of decency. The first page was blank, as were the next few, but then I saw his neat, confident handwriting. It wasn't a diary, it was a list of expenses I didn't recognize. 2 tickets to the Gilded Spoon, flower arrangement, Cartier bracelet. My stomach clenched. He had given me a simple bouquet for our anniversary, and the only jewelry he'd bought me recently was a pair of pearl earrings. I flipped the page, my hands trembling. Dinner at the Gilded Spoon, tickets to a movie, dinner at that Italian place you love so much. Again, dates and times. None of them matched our plans. Then I saw the name. Eleanor. My mother's name was written next to every expense, a list of things he had bought for my mother. But why? My mother was fiercely independent and wouldn't let Liam buy her anything more than a birthday dinner. But this wasn't just one dinner. It was a series of them. And the Cartier bracelet? That was an expensive gift. Not the kind of thing you buy your mother-in-law. A new page was opened. Call her. Tell her about the bonus. Suggest a weekend away at the cabin. It was written under the heading, My Plan for the Future. I closed the notebook, feeling sick to my stomach. The aftershave scent suddenly felt suffocating. I thought of my mother's big news and her new cheerfulness. I thought of Liam's quiet hum and his nervous energy. I thought of the lipstick smudge on his shirt that wasn't mine. It all clicked. The picture that my heart was afraid to draw became crystal clear. Just a couple of weeks ago, I'd found a small, white envelope in the side pocket of Liam's car. It was the receipt for a gold Cartier bracelet. I had asked Liam about it, jokingly. Who are you buying jewelry for now, you big spender? I had seen his eyes flash with panic. Oh, that, he had said, clearing his throat. It's for a client's wife. We closed a big deal. I had believed him, of course. Why wouldn't I? Now, holding this notebook, I knew the truth. I put the notebook back, my mind racing. A plan just as cold and calculating as Liam's began to form. I would find out everything. Every dirty detail, every whispered secret. I wouldn't confront them. Not yet. I would let them think they were safe, that they had gotten away with it. And then, when they least expected it, I would show them what their secrecy had cost me. But for now, I had to keep a straight face. I had to smile. And I had to make the call to my mother. I dialed her number, my voice shaking slightly. Mom, I said, trying to sound cheerful. You have big news, huh? Tell me everything. My mother's voice was like music on the other end of the line, a melody of pure joy. Oh, sweetie, I've finally done it. I'm selling the house. She sounded ecstatic, her voice full of a new, carefree energy that made my heart ache, with a twisted combination of pride and betrayal. She had been talking about this for years, about selling the small 2-story house where she had raised me alone after my father had died, and moving somewhere warm, somewhere she could finally put her feet up. But something had always held her back. A fear of change, a reluctance to let go of the past. Until now. Selling? That's wonderful, Mom. What about your new place? Where are you going? I tried to sound excited for her, my voice a high-pitched, fragile thing. Oh, nothing yet, but I'm looking at a few condos in Florida. I've always dreamed of living near the ocean, and I'll have so much more money now that Liam is helping me with the sale. She laughed, a light, girlish sound. He's so good with all that legal stuff. He's been a godsend, helping me with the paperwork and everything. My stomach clenched. Liam had been helping her with a lot more than just paperwork. I thought of the list in his notebook, the dinners, the movies, the expensive gifts. I thought of his plan to suggest a weekend away at the cabin that belonged to my family. That was the next step in his plan, to take my mother to our cabin, the place where we spent our family vacations, the place where he and I had told our daughters that we were expecting them. The irony was so bitter, it almost made me choke. That's so great, Mom, I said, and I meant it in a way. I was glad for her, but the thought of her and Liam together, plotting my future while lying about their own, was like a physical weight on my chest. So what's the big news you wanted to tell me? That you're moving? Oh no, that's not it, she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I'm dating again, honey. A man I met through Liam, actually. He's so sweet, and he makes me feel so young again. I closed my eyes, my face a mask of feigned happiness. A man she met through Liam. It all fit. The dinners, the movies, the gifts. He was setting her up with someone to cover their tracks, to make their affair look innocent. But why? Why go to all that trouble? Was he that worried about getting caught? I wanted to scream, to ask her why she was doing this to me. But I held back. I needed more. I needed proof. I needed to see it, to hear it, to taste the bitter truth of their betrayal before I confronted them. Mom, that's just wonderful, I said, trying to push past the lump in my throat. I'm so happy for you. Who is he? Oh, you don't know him, she said quickly, her voice a little too loud, a little too defensive. He's a lawyer, a friend of Liam's. We've been seeing each other for a few months now, and I don't know, he just makes me so happy. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. I was in a war, a psychological war with the two people I loved most in the world, and I knew I had to be smarter than they were. The next day, I started my plan. I'd seen Liam, my husband, as the man who was perfect for me, the man who had a stable income, who was an amazing father to our kids, a loving husband to me, the man who had everything, and I, being his partner, his wife, his world, felt like an equal part of that perfection. But now, it all felt like a sham. A house of cards built on lies. Liam was an extremely thorough man, so when I told him I needed to take a trip to New York to check out some rare art pieces for an exhibit I was curating in my studio, he didn't question me. He just nodded, his eyes distant, already preoccupied with his own plans. I'd booked a hotel for 2 nights, a business-class flight, and even asked a friend in New York to act as my alibi. All I needed was for Liam to think I was gone. But I never boarded that plane. I took a taxi to a small, unassuming hotel on the outskirts of the city, checked in under a fake name, and waited. I had a small suitcase with me, a few clothes, a laptop, and a small silver object I had bought at a spy store online. A tiny, almost invisible camera, disguised as a charging port. I had also bought a micro recorder that I planned to hide in the vase in our bedroom. I knew this was a terrible thing to do. I felt like a criminal, but my need for the truth was stronger than my sense of morality. My trust had been shattered, and now I had to see the extent of the damage with my own eyes. I needed to know if they were planning to hurt me, if they were plotting against me, if their happiness was built on my ruin. I spent the next 2 days in that small hotel room, trying to keep myself busy, but my mind was in a constant loop of fear, anger, and anticipation. I called Liam, my voice a forced cheerfulness. "The art scene here is just wonderful, honey. I found some truly amazing pieces. I miss you." "I miss you too, sweetheart," he said, his voice as smooth and steady as it always was. "I'm glad you're having a good time. Say hi to Eleanor for me, will you? I'm gonna go see her after work to help with her home sale." My heart stopped. He was going to see her. Today. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. The trap was set. All I had to do now was wait for the right moment. The truth was just a few hours away, and I was terrified of what it would reveal. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Don't let it be true." But deep down, I knew it already was. I just needed proof. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I just sat in my cramped hotel room, staring at the laptop, a digital eye into the home I now realized was a stage for their lies. The camera, disguised as a charging port, was positioned in our bedroom, offering a view of the entire room. The micro recorder, a tiny device I'd hidden inside the vase on the bedside table, was live streaming audio directly to my laptop. The quality was flawless. Every whisper, every rustle of fabric, every sigh was transmitted with chilling clarity. Around 7 in the evening, I heard the front door open. My heart pounded against my ribs. I had been listening to Liam's movements in the house for the last hour, but there was a new sound, a lighter footfall. It wasn't a heavy stomp like Liam's, it was a woman. My stomach twisted into a knot, and I felt a hot, familiar rage rise in my throat. I watched through the camera as the bedroom door opened. It was my mother. She walked in, her purse slung over her shoulder, a small overnight bag clutched in her hand. She looked radiant, her face flushed with excitement. Her hair was down, and she wore a soft, elegant dress I'd never seen before. She stood in the middle of the room for a moment, her eyes drinking in the sight of it. Our bed, our perfect, king-sized bed, our perfect, fake life. Then Liam walked in. He was wearing jeans and a casual polo shirt, but he had the same look on his face he'd had at our anniversary dinner. Nervous, excited, full of a secret. He walked over to her, his arms open, and she went into his embrace like it was the most natural thing in the world. They kissed. A real kiss. Deep, passionate, prolonged. My hands, clutching the sides of the laptop, turned white. I could hear their breathing, their low whispers. "I'm so glad you could stay the night," Liam whispered. "I missed you so much today." "I missed you too, baby," my mother replied, her voice soft and full of love. "I wish we could do this more often, but with you gone for so long, and then with me selling the house. She trailed off, but Liam's voice, a soft, familiar rumble, filled in the gaps. I know, but soon. Soon we'll have all the time in the world. I've already put a deposit down on that condo in Florida you liked. It's perfect, just like you. My world went silent. Florida. The condo. A deposit. It was all a lie. My mother, my own mother, was planning a future with my husband. They were going to leave me, to leave our family, and they were going to do it with my husband's money, the same money he had made to provide for our family. I watched as they undressed each other, their movements intimate, practiced. They were in love, not just having a fling. My mother laughed, and the sound was like a hammer hitting my head over and over again. I watched as they lay in my bed, whispering promises, sharing a love that was supposed to be mine. My mother's soft sighs, Liam's familiar hands on her skin. It was all too much. I felt a wave of nausea. I wanted to throw up, to scream, to smash the laptop into a million pieces. But I held on. I watched every agonizing minute. I had to. I needed to know the whole truth. I watched until I couldn't take it anymore. The recording, a digital record of my life being ripped to shreds, was now on my laptop. I had my proof. The video, the audio, my mother's words, Liam's promises, it was all there. I closed the laptop, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The aftershave scent, the scent that had once been so comforting, now seemed to cling to my nostrils like a parasite. I stood up, my knees buckling under my own weight. I went to the small bathroom and looked in the mirror, but I didn't see myself. I saw a stranger, a woman with pale skin and hollow eyes. A woman who had been betrayed by the two people she loved most in the world. I felt a cold, hard resolve settle in my chest, a resolve that felt more real than anything I had felt in months. I didn't call them. I just sat on the edge of the bed in my hotel room, the laptop with the recording of their betrayal sitting on the desk like a ticking time bomb. I knew what I had to do. I would go home. I would act like nothing had happened. I would let them come to me, to try and explain their lies, to try and convince me that everything was fine. And then, when they were at their most vulnerable, when they thought they had gotten away with it, I would reveal their secret. Not to their faces, not in a screaming match, but in a way that would destroy them both. A revenge plan, cold and calculating as Liam's, began to form in my mind. The Gilded Spoon, where our love story began, would be where it ended. And my mother's new life, a life built on my husband's lies, would be brought to a swift and brutal end. But for now, I had to wait. I had to let them think they had won. I had to let them come home, my bed, my life, and wait for me to take it all back. When I got home, the house was silent. It was late afternoon, and the light that filtered through the large living room windows cast a golden haze over everything, as if to pretend that nothing was wrong. I walked in, my heart pounding, and dropped my bag on the floor. I felt like a ghost in my own home, a visitor in a life that was no longer mine. I found Liam in his office, sitting at his desk, staring at a spreadsheet. He looked up when he saw me, a mixture of surprise and relief on his face. "You're back early, honey. The exhibit finished?" he asked, a smile that didn't reach his eyes playing on his lips. I nodded, feeling a cold, hard resolve settle in my chest. "Yeah, I finished up early." I walked over to him, my voice a calm, even tone I didn't recognize. "I saw some really amazing pieces, but I missed you." I leaned down and kissed him on the forehead, right in the same place my mother's lips had probably been just a few hours ago. He winced almost imperceptibly, but quickly regained his composure. "I missed you too, sweetie," he said, pulling me into a hug. "It was so quiet here without you." He was a good actor, but I had the recording. I had the proof, and I knew that his quiet weekend wasn't spent alone. I pulled away, my gaze sweeping over the perfect, manicured perfection of our home. "I bet," I said, my voice dripping with an irony he didn't catch. "That must have been a lot of work for you, being alone all weekend. Is Mom still here, or did she head home already?" I asked, holding my breath. No. She left this morning, he said, his eyes a little too quick, a little too innocent. She had to get back for her meeting with the realtor. She was so excited about that new place in Florida. He was still lying. Even now, with me standing right in front of him, he was still lying. I felt a surge of pure, unadulterated rage, but I kept my face calm. That's great, I said, forcing a smile that felt like it would crack my face. I'm so happy for her, for both of us. It's a new beginning. The next morning was our cue. I had a plan, a terrible, beautiful plan of revenge that would be subtle yet devastating. I told Liam I had a huge project at my studio and would be busy all day, but that I'd be home for a celebratory dinner. That night, Liam was home early. He met me at the door with a nervous smile. "Dinner's ready, sweetheart. I made your favorite lamb chops." The lamb chops were delicious, cooked to perfection, just the way he knew I liked them. But the taste of betrayal was a metallic aftertaste in my mouth. We ate in silence, a heavy, oppressive silence that was only broken by the clinking of our forks and the sound of my mother's voice on the video. The video was of a family vacation we took a few years ago. In it, my mother and I were laughing, drinking wine, and talking about life. My plan was to bring up this memory to show how much our relationship meant to me and how much I valued her as a person. I told Liam about a recent conversation I had with my mother where she spoke about her future plans and her new boyfriend, a lawyer she met through him. I explained how happy I was for her and that I was happy for him. I then began my revenge by telling him that I was not happy about their relationship. I can't believe it, I said, looking at him, my eyes welling with tears. I can't believe what's happening. I don't understand how you could lie to me like this. You were supposed to be my husband, my rock, and she was my mother, the one person in the world I could always count on. But you both lied. You stole from me. You stole my life, my husband, my family, and my future, and you didn't even have the decency to tell me. And now I have nothing. I can't believe it. Liam sat in his seat, speechless, his eyes wide with horror. He looked at me, his face pale as a ghost, and he whispered, "What are you saying? You think I'm having an affair with your mother? With Eleanor? You're crazy. I swear to you it's not what you think. I can explain." "Don't you dare," I said, my voice rising, trembling with a controlled rage. "Don't you dare lie to me again. Don't you dare pretend that I'm crazy. I have proof. I have a video. I have a recording." I stood up, walked over to the TV and plugged in the USB I had hidden in my pocket. I brought up a video file and pressed play. It showed the video of them together at the Gilded Spoon. It showed a video of them at my mother's house. I showed the video of their intimate, passionate relationship. Liam sat in his seat, still as a statue, watching the video unfold, his face a mask of shock and betrayal. His face was full of betrayal, guilt, and horror. I then brought up the video of their lovemaking. I watched as he slowly turned to me, his eyes wide with horror and guilt. He finally opened his mouth to say something, but he was interrupted by the doorbell. It was my mother. She had come to celebrate her good news. She had a bottle of champagne in her hand and a smile on her face. Her face was full of love, happiness, and innocence. The doorbell rang, a bright, cheerful sound that sliced through the tense silence. It was Eleanor. She stood on our doorstep, holding a bottle of champagne, her face a mask of joyous anticipation. She looked beautiful, and for a moment I saw her not as a betrayer but as my mother, the woman who had raised me, the woman who was about to share her big news with the man she loved. Then she saw Liam's face, pale and stricken. She saw me standing by the television, a remote in my hand. She saw the video playing on the screen, the video of her and Liam in our bed. Her face, a moment ago so full of light, crumpled. The champagne bottle slipped from her fingers, shattering on the polished hardwood floor, its contents foaming in a grotesque celebration. "Eleanor," Liam said, his voice a hoarse whisper. "Mom," I said, my voice steady, though my heart was a hammer against my ribs. Liam and I were just watching a video. My mother looked at the screen, then at Liam, then at me. Her eyes, usually so sharp and full of life, were now wide with horror. She ran toward Liam, not to comfort him, but to slap him across the face. The sound echoed in the quiet house, a sharp, violent punctuation to their perfect deception. "You bastard!" she screamed, her voice raw with fury. "You told me you loved me, you told me you would take care of me, and now you do this!" Liam stood there, speechless, his hand on his cheek, where a red mark was already blooming. He looked at me, his eyes pleading, begging for me to explain, to say it was all a misunderstanding. But I just stood there, watching their world burn. "Don't look at me," I said, a cold smile on my face. "This is between you two. Your secret. Your mess. And now you get to clean it up." My mother started to cry, a high-pitched, desolate wail that tore through my heart. She turned to me, her eyes full of a pain that was a mirror of my own. "Sweetie," she sobbed, "it's not what you think. I can explain." "Can you?" I asked, my voice as cold as the marble in our bathroom. "Can you explain the Cartier bracelet, the condo in Florida, the promises of a new life? Can you explain why you would do this to me, to our family, to your own daughter?" She collapsed onto the sofa, sobbing uncontrollably. Liam finally found his voice, a broken, pathetic sound. "It wasn't like that, honey," he said, looking from my mother to me, his voice full of a desperate pleading. "I swear, I was helping her. She was so lonely after your father died. I was trying to make her happy. We were just friends." The lie was so transparent, so insulting that I almost laughed. "Friends?" I said, my voice rising to a dangerous crescendo. "Did friends do that in our bed? Did friends make love and plan a new life behind my back? Did friends conspire to leave me, to take everything from me, and not even have the decency to tell me?" My mother looked at me, and I saw a flicker of the old Eleanor, the fierce, proud woman who had raised me. "I never wanted to hurt you, honey," she said, her voice a whisper. "I swear, my Nietzsche happened. He was so good to me. He made me feel young again. I was so stupid. And now, I have nothing. Nothing." The word hung in the air like a poisoned dart. And she was right. She had nothing. She had destroyed her relationship with me, with the man she loved, and with her own daughter. She had thrown away a lifetime of love for a fleeting moment of happiness, and now she had to live with the consequences. I walked over to the shattered champagne bottle, its sharp edges glinting in the light. I knelt down, picked up a piece of glass, and looked at my reflection in it. I saw a woman with a broken heart, a shattered world, but a new steel-like strength in her eyes. I cut my hand slightly on the glass, a small, insignificant sting that reminded me that this was real, that this was not a dream. I stood up and looked at them, at Liam sitting on the floor, his face in his hands, at my mother sobbing on the sofa. I had my revenge. It was bitter, cold, and final. I had a video of their betrayal, I had a recording of their lies, I had a front row seat to their destruction, and for a moment, it felt good. But then I looked at my mother, at the broken woman on the sofa, and I felt nothing but a profound, unending grief. The aftershave scent, the scent of their lies and my betrayal, suddenly felt suffocating, and I knew that my own life was over too. A new chapter had begun for me as well, and it was going to be filled with the consequences of their betrayal and my own need for revenge.